Hi, this is Michelle with Appreze, and this video is going to provide tips on getting the most out of the paperback book titled The Misfit of Misfits that you can find on Amazon.com at the link in the description of this video. While this book was created to accompany the first semester of our preschool Spanish curriculum, it can also be used as a standalone book to teach some Spanish words, primarily animal names, in a non-intimidating and natural way through repetition. First, you'll see our copyright and disclaimer page for your reference. Then you'll see our pronunciation guide. You can read all the details in the paperback book, but one thing I'd like to point out is that if you're new to Spanish, you'll need to decide if you want to pronounce the letter E in Spanish like they do in Spain, E as in pay, or like Latin America, E as in mess. If you use the included pronunciation guide, you'll see E treated as E as in mess, but in this video, since I learned Castilian Spanish, I'll use E as in pay. If you need more help with pronunciation, on our YouTube channel we have a video on pronunciation that you can look at. And another resource we have is the full pronunciation guide that's in a blog post on our website. You can find the links to these resources and a lot more at appreze.com/preschoolspanish. Now we're ready to read the book, The Misfit of Misfits. This will not be a straight read-through. Instead, I'm going to give tips along the way so you have ideas on how you can read the book and expand even more on the Spanish words that the child learns. Starting with the first page, it says, "It's hard to not fit in at the zoo, but mono isn't the only animal that feels like a misfit." When you come across any Spanish word indicated in a different bolded font as shown here, I would pause and then enunciate each syllable clearly so that the child can pick up on the word in context and repeat it back to you, then define it for you eventually. And don't forget, if you know the sign from American Sign Language or ASL for the Spanish word being said, use that sign every single time and at the same time you say the Spanish word. This is a key part of our preschool Spanish curriculum, but if you're using this book as a standalone book, then don't worry about the signs. This book has strategically placed the words for the animals, animales, in this book so that there's repetition and thus acquisition and retention of those Spanish words. Let's read it. Mono said, "The other monkeys tell me I look more like a cat than a monkey." Panda said, "The other bears laugh when I eat bamboo." Tigre added, "The other tigers tell me I'm weird because I don't have a coat that's orange." Serpiente said, "The other snakes say I'm weak because I don't have venom." Zebra said, "I'll scream if one more animal asks me why I have stripes painted on me." Now, a key part of this book is that the animals, animales, that are black, negro, and white, blanco, is that they don't speak Spanish. That's why they're not using Spanish when they speak. But it doesn't mean you don't have to. For example, when you've read this book a couple of times and the child understands the Spanish words for each animal, animal, then you can add the following. Mono said, "The other monkeys," wait, what's the word for monkeys? Then your child may not know, but you can say, okay, what's the word for monkey? And they'll say mono. Then you say, well, listen, this is monkeys in Spanish. Monos. Say that with me. Monos. And then have them say it. And say, good, muy bien. Okay, so the other monos tell me I look more like a cat than a monkey. How do we say monkey? And then have the child say mono. And that's how you can do it with the other words as well. And the next progression after you've done that is to have the children fill in the blank like this. Let's go to the panda. Panda said, "The other bears," and then look at them and just pause and wait and have them say osos. "Laugh when I eat bamboo." Tigre added, the other tigers? How do we say that? And then they'll say tigres and say muy bien. The other tigres tell me I'm weird because I don't have a coat that's... And then have them say anaranjado, the color for orange in Spanish, if you're doing colors as well. And you can just add on and on and on if you know more Spanish, or you look it up and you want to translate some of these vocabulary words for them. Mono had an idea. He said, "We're all animals that are black and white. We all don't fit in. Let's create a home that's black and white where we all belong." The others loved the idea Mono had. So the animales flew to a forest far, far away to make their dream come true. Again, you can do what we just did with the last spread, or last 2 pages is what a spread is, with this page that has mono or monkey on it. So when Mono says, "We're all animales," is that how you say animals? Have your child say sí or no, yes or no, that are, and he said black and white. How do we say that in Spanish? Have your child say negro, and what is white? Blanco. Good, muy bien. And so you get the idea. Now, to the second page on the right, you can say, the others love the idea mono. How do you say that in English? Monkey, that's right, had. So the animales, what is that word in English? And now you're doing the opposite. Instead of asking them for the Spanish word, you're asking them for the English word. And then you'll get to feel whether or not they really have retention of what these vocabulary words are in the other languages. The animales built their houses. They finally felt like they had a home where they weren't misfits. You can have fun with this spread. Once you've read through this book, I'd say 3 or 4 times a week, and the child is starting to pick up on the Spanish words for each animal or animal, then you can say, okay, I'm going to point to an animal, and I'm going to ask you what the name is for that animal in Spanish. Then you move your finger around really fast in a circle around all these animals or animales, and then, boom, drop your finger on one of them and say, ¿Qué animal es? What animal is it? And then have the child say the name in Spanish. If he doesn't know yet, that's okay. Let's say you pointed to the snake, serpiente. That's a long word. You can say to the child, say it with me, serpiente, and clap with each syllable and have the child clap with you. That kinesthetic or bodily learning style, that move helps the child really understand what's being said and repeat it back correctly. Mono had a party at his house. Then all the animales heard someone say, "Oh, this is the perfect place for my new home." Panda yelled, "What is that doing here?" Tigre said, "Someone tell him to leave." Mono whispered, "He'll go away if we're quiet." Here is an example where you can match your voice to what the words are saying. Give a little squawk to introduce pájaro, bird, yell to show panda's disbelief, and so on. This will add interest and deeper attention from the children listening to this story. And don't be shy about hamming it up. Kids will learn even quicker when they're engaged with laughter from you acting the emotions and characters out. Another thing you can do, especially if you're using semester 1 of our preschool Spanish curriculum, is to ask the child to count the number of balloons in Spanish with you. You can do this with any page or spread that has all the animals to practice counting up to 6 in Spanish. Then, Pájaro talked to them. He said, "Hola, neighbors." Serpiente replied, "You're not our neighbor. You're different. You can fly. We don't like that." Then Zebra added, "When you fly, we'll feel watched. You can't fly around here." Pájaro shared, "No problem. I fly to see other places, so I won't be flying around my new home here. I can't wait to get to know you all. Now I need to start building my house." Now, let's talk about colors, especially if you're using this book with our preschool Spanish curriculum. Even if you're not, if you know your colors in Spanish or the child has been exposed to the Spanish words at their school, you can expand on this book in so many ways because there are so many colors throughout it. For example, on the page with the pájaro, bird, you can point to the body of the pájaro and ask, ¿Qué color es? What color is it? Pause, give them a chance to answer, and then say, rojo, red, if they don't know. But be sure to have them repeat the word back to you while clapping each syllable out so they'll get the word as you read this book again and again. Once the child independently knows each color, switch roles with the child and have them ask you what the color is for the body, the trees, the wings, and so on. When the child first leads the questioning, you can play like you don't know and answer with the wrong color. The child will probably laugh and correct you. This will build confidence in the child as well as enable you to test the child's knowledge in a fun and natural way. You can do this with any page in this book. I would do it a couple of times each time you read this book and spread the instances out. The animales were very unhappy with Pájaro. They couldn't believe he dripped paint all over them. Pájaro told them, "I'm sorry about the mess, neighbors. It should wash right off." Serpiente replied back to Pájaro, saying, "We're not your neighbors. If you're not black and white, you don't fit in." Tigre added, "All animals that are black and white, meet at my house now." A way to slip in more Spanish is, for example, with what Tigre says. After you read, Tigre added, "All animals that are black and white, meet at my house now." You can ask the child, who did tiger, invite to his house? The animales, animals that are black. How do we say black in Spanish? Pause, and hopefully the child will say negro. And what about white? What's white in Spanish? Hopefully they'll say blanco. If they don't, you just say it for them and have them repeat it. So, Tigre invited the animales that are negro and blanco. Are you ready to see what happens next? And that's how you can proceed to the next page. Tigre said, "I was right. Someone should have told him to leave. Now he's built his home here." Then Panda said, "Shh, what's that? It sounds like a song, but I don't understand all that's being sung." Zebra yelled, "Come with me! Let's find out what's happening!" If you're using our preschool Spanish curriculum semester 1, then this is one of our songs sung to the tune of If You're Happy and You Know It. So the children will know this song and have them sing it with you. Have fun and get silly, but make sure you enunciate the syllables clearly. Me encanta el color rojo. Red! Me encanta el color azul. Blue! Me encanta is I love. El color is the color. Me encanta el color verde. Green! Zebra said, "What kind of animal sings in a different language? This is worse than I thought." Zebra told Pájaro, "You fly. You love colors. You speak another language. You're not one of us. Please leave." "Oh, I just wanted a home where I could fit in. I'll leave tomorrow." So where there are times when the bird is talking, you can squawk to introduce it so they know it's the pájaro, the bird, or you can leave it out. If you know Spanish, you could add to the last sentence that pájaro says, "Qué lástima," or "Pobrecito," and translate what you're saying to the children. Then, the next time you read this to them, you can make that phrase or word something that everyone says together, and you can have them sniffle. So let's say after Pájaro says, "I just wanted a home where I could fit in. I'll leave tomorrow." Then, say you chose pobrecito, which means poor thing. Then you could have everybody say, "Pobrecito," and sniffle like they're crying. I would not do crying because from my experience, it can get a little out of control over time, where sniffling is sort of less likely and harder to do. But this is a good way to engage the children because we're moving through the book almost to the end, but we want to keep their engagement, especially the little ones that might be 2 and 3. And adding that little engagement can pique their interest and they can keep their attention to the end. Throughout this book, we use the Spanish word animal and animales many times. If you know Spanish, you'll notice that we use the English version of articles, which are the words a, an, and the before a noun. So let's read this. The next morning, a loud boom woke up all the animales. A tree had fallen on the house Pájaro built. They heard another boom in the distance, then another. The animales were afraid their houses would be next. Pájaro said he wouldn't let that happen. He flew away to see what was going on. All right, so there are some opportunities we can use the articles that we talked about. Again, we have the articles in English, a, an, and the, that are before nouns. So like on this spread, where we've said animales twice, if you know the Spanish articles, which are un, unos, una, and unas for a and you know el, los, la, and las for the, then I'd suggest adding the appropriate article after the child has read this book with you a number of times and has a good grasp on what all the Spanish words mean. For example, you would now read the paragraphs that have the word animales in them like this. The next morning, a loud boom woke up all los animales. A tree had fallen on the house Pájaro built. They heard another boom in the distance, then another. Los animales were afraid their houses would be next. So that would introduce the articles to them. Sometimes we as adults, we know that, okay, los is the animales is animals. And we think the children understand that too. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So when you start introducing the word los for the, I would spell them out. I would translate that for them and say, especially on this second paragraph that starts on the right page, los, the, animales, animals, were afraid their houses would be next. So after the child understands that los animales means the animals, and you know this because they translate it independently when asked, then you can stop adding the English translation and just start with los animales were afraid, etc. Now, this is the only spread that has an English translation for the Spanish right below it, because these people only speak Spanish. I'd suggest reading the English translation after you say the Spanish. Otherwise, the children will have no earthly idea what's being communicated. The point of this spread is not for the children to perfectly understand these Spanish sentences, but instead to grasp that Pájaro saved the day because he could speak another language that the other animales could not. So let's read this one. When Pájaro flew around, he saw people cutting down trees. The lady said, "Mira, look, un pájaro, a bird, con muchos colores, with many colors." Pájaro told her, "Para, stop. Yo vivo aquí. I live here." The lady yelled to the man, "Para, stop." Este pájaro, this bird, es un animal protegido. He is a bird he's a protected animal. No podemos, we can't, talar, chop down, árboles aquí, trees here. So, there are many different ways you can do this. If you want the children to grasp what some of these words are, then you can read it similarly to how I did, or you can read the Spanish sentence all the way through, and then read the English one all the way through. I would recommend, if you want the children to get some of the words on this page, start on the left page when you say mira, look. Have them get that word down first. Then just say un pájaro, a bird. And if you're using the signs, that's great. They'll know un pájaro is a bird. And then you can say con muchos colores. And just wait to teach them all those words later. When you get to the right side of the page, you can teach them para, for stop. You could put your hand up like stop and say para, stop, and have them say that too and get into the action of what's happening, since para is said twice. After they get mira and para, then un pájaro, I'd make sure that they know that's a bird. Again, the articles. We have the articles here. We could teach them. They may not grasp the whole concept of articles yet, but you can say a bird, un pájaro, and use the sign. And then go to the right page. They have para, remember? So now what we're going to do is let's pick up este pájaro, this bird. So they can see, it's less intimidating because they already know pájaro. And then you can have them get that. And you see what I'm doing. I'm adding on. So first time we teach them mira, para. Second time we're teaching them the distinction between un pájaro and este pájaro. And then you can add on whatever you want to. You might want to choose colores if you're working on colors, like especially with our semester 1 preschool Spanish curriculum, we go through colors. So I would choose colors if that's what you're doing. Teach them what colores is, and then add con muchos colores later. Animal, they already know on the right side. You can help them know what un animal is, and just add it little piece by piece, especially because when you're teaching with our curriculum, you're going to be teaching using this book quite often, every week probably. And so this page can really facilitate a lot more learning if you just add on these words week by week by week. If not, then don't worry about it. Just read the Spanish sentence, read the English sentence, and you're good. Pájaro returned to his house. He told the animales what happened. He told them their homes were safe now. Panda said, "I'm glad you can fly. You found the problem quickly." Serpiente added, "Your colors are beautiful. They made the people notice you." Zebra said, "The other language you speak is special. The people understood they had to stop." A little side note here. Panda could also be called oso panda, meaning panda bear. I like to start with panda because it's a cognate, meaning it sounds very similar to its English translation. But depending on how my classes go, I might introduce oso panda, especially if I want them to know the Spanish word for bear. And I want to introduce them to the concepts of gender, masculine and feminine, and adjectives following instead of preceding nouns in Spanish. If this all doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. If it does, then you could decide if you want to use oso panda to teach another vocabulary word, oso, and the concepts of adjectives and gender. The animales that were negro and blanco felt bad because of how they treated Pájaro. They said they were sorry for being unkind. They asked Pájaro to stay and make his home with them. Pájaro said, "Sí, I need a home where I fit in. Panda, mono, serpiente, zebra, and tigre told pájaro, your home is with us. As you've heard me do throughout this book, please translate any Spanish word you say to English until the child can translate it independently. An exception to this is when you read off the list of animal names in Spanish in the pink section of this spread. You can just point to the animal you're saying the name for and not translate, since the child can make the visual connection. This can apply to any page of this book when you read the name of an animal or even a color, a color. This next note is more for teachers using our Semester 1 preschool Spanish curriculum, or those who know Spanish already. But I'd like to share the logic of why Spanish words were added to this book the way we did and how to expand upon what this book teaches. We could have written this sentence, the animales that were negro and blanco, as the negro and blanco animales. But that's not the correct order in Spanish, since adjectives follow the noun in Spanish versus adjectives preceding the noun in English. So we start out with the animales that were negro and blanco, so that if you know Spanish and want to teach more Spanish after the child understands what these three words mean, then you can work your way up to do that. The way I do this is I start by adding the article los before animales. Once the child understands what those two words translate to, then I introduce the Spanish word for and, and only say negro y blanco. I would enunciate the word and like I just did, negro y blanco, so that they distinguish that it's a third word. Once the child understands that y means and, then I can add the concept of number, which is singular and plural, to the adjectives of negro and blanco. If I had started with the negro and blanco animales, I would have created another step on introducing the placement of the adjectives behind the noun, whereas this makes it a more natural transition. If you're a native speaker and are used to saying blanco and y negro and intend to introduce this entire sentence, I'd suggest using blanco and negro from the beginning instead of negro and blanco. It's just a little distinction between English and Spanish, so that most people in English say black and white, and a lot of times in Spanish-speaking countries, they might say white and black. So if you're a native Spanish speaker, you will understand all this. If not, don't worry about it. Now we're on to the last spread of the book. This is the only spread that does not have any words. So on this, you can ask the children all kinds of questions to prompt them to say Spanish words. I suggest letting them soak in the visual of this page the first time you read the book. Then they'll be ready for your questions. For example, you can ask them, what color is the serpiente, snake, painting with? That would be to quiz them on colors, but the opposite works as well by asking them, which animal is painting with azul? And by asking them that, they have to know what animal and azul is in Spanish, and this quizzes them on the Spanish names for animals as well as a color. Another thing you could do with this spread, if you already know Spanish, is to point out un animal, an animal, and ask, ¿Quién es? Who is it? And then have them answer in Spanish. If you're not comfortable doing that, you could just ask, which animal makes the sound roar? And have them answer in Spanish and say tigre. One last example is, remember back in the beginning when you moved your finger in a circle, stopped, pointed at one animal, and said, ¿Qué animal es? What animal is it? Now you can use the same type of interaction by saying, let's say goodbye, adios, to all our friends that are animales. Here we go. And you move your finger around, boom, stop on un animal and say adios, and then pause. When I pause, I look at them like with a look of, okay, answer. And then wait for the child to answer with the Spanish word for that animal. And if she gets it, say, muy bien, very good. If she doesn't, say the word for her, and after several times, she'll get it on her own. That's also a good way to know when she's acquired the Spanish names for all of los animales. And that's the end. Please remember to clap with the syllables when you introduce a Spanish word like pájaro. And always use the signs if you're using this book with our Semester 1 Preschool Spanish curriculum. Both are kinesthetic learning styles that will aid immensely in the child's acquisition and retention of the Spanish language. If you want more resources like videos on gender, number, and pronunciation, go to aprise.com/preschool Spanish that has all of our preschool Spanish resources. And if you have questions after that, send us an email at hello@aprise.com. I hope you and the children in your life have fun with this book and that it's an enriching experience with you all. Adios. Goodbye.